Welcome to Junior Achievement's volunteer training for JA Finance Park. Junior Achievement is an international nonprofit organization serving over 10 million students worldwide and over 160,000 students in the state of Georgia in FY15. Junior Achievement's mission as an organization is to inspire and prepare students to succeed in the global economy. We do that by focusing on 3 key pillars of workforce readiness, financial literacy, and entrepreneurship. At our Discovery Center, located in downtown Atlanta, we have 2 programs on site, JA Biztown and JA Finance Park. In JA Biztown, 6th grade students come to work a job for the day, and in Finance Park, they actually come to manage a household monthly budget. The goal in JA Finance Park is to have students see their financial futures in an immersive and interactive way by managing their own household personal budget. Students will prepare with their teachers about 20 lessons in the classroom before they attend so that they can apply their knowledge once they're here. Volunteers are there to help provide experiences that relate to spending decisions, connect the budgeting process to the real world, as well as foster critical thinking and collaboration skills. Students will be divided into 18 groups, so that way there's about 5 to 7 students per each group. Each group will be assigned to a home store, and every volunteer is assigned to a home store. So there's typically about 1 volunteer to every 5 to 7 students. You will be the mentor and guide to that group of students for the day, helping them start to understand the budgeting process and connect all of this information to the real world. Students will be working on the tablet to go through the Finance Park software to go through a lot of the detail of the budgeting process. Volunteers will also have a tablet to use as a resource to provide more details and instructions to students throughout the day. We are currently looking at the volunteer guide, so if you'd like to print this out and bring it with you, you're more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, you will have this guide on a tablet for you once you arrive, as well as a home store assignment once you arrive. This guide will have more detail on the steps as we go through the day, but before we get into the details, let's look at a high-level overview of the different budgeting steps. In step 1, students learn about their life scenario and what family background and education they have that will impact their decisions for the day. After that, they have to calculate their net monthly income and find out how much money they have to spend in this process. In step 2, in the savings, they learn about the value of savings so that they can start with that before they start to pay their other bills. In research, they will then learn about all those different expenses beyond savings that will be a part of their budget. Then everyone breaks and goes to lunch, so everyone has about an hour to get settled in the stores for the first part of the day. At the lunch period, everyone will divide up and either go to the Delta Airlines Career Exploration Center or go to lunch. In step 4, after everyone's back from lunch, we'll have all students create a budget plan to figure out how they're going to spend their money in their budget. After that, students will actually go shopping based on that budget plan to try to stick to their budgets and balance by the end of their day. After everything has been shopped for and all their expenses have been considered, students will then make payments on their items that they have, and then they will be able to finish the entire process by doing the Invesco budget review. Volunteers are crucial throughout this entire process to guide students, to mentor them, coach them through this, to make sure they understand the realities of budgeting and what it's actually like to be an adult. We highly encourage you to share your own personal decisions and own personal experiences about the budgeting process. A few student management tips that are helpful for volunteers with working with students with technology. The first is tablets down. While students are working with technology, they're usually very immersed in looking at the screens, which is great, but we also need their attention from time to time. When you say tablets down, that means all students should turn their tablets face down so that you can give them all instructions at one time or help facilitate a discussion. Another key student management tip is pacing and group discussion. Make sure to give instructions all at one time to students instead of individually. You can have them move their chairs around to help them work together, and you want them to stay together throughout this process as much as possible. As they go through this, we will also want to make sure that any technology issues are addressed by JA. You are not responsible for fixing their tablet issues. We ask that if there's any issues, please send the student with their tablet to the middle of Finance Park so that we can fix the technology for them. As they go through this process, also help to to develop their soft skills with reverse questioning and critical thinking. So when they ask you a question, just flip it and ask them to figure it out. Or have them work together and figure it out as a group. The last thing is that attitude's infectious, so just stay positive and have fun. We want to help students understand why budgeting is important and a part of their future, no matter what they want to do. Once students arrive, everyone will meet in the SunTrust Theater to start the day. All teachers, volunteers, and students will watch a video to get started, and then we'll have a welcome to explain the details of the day to students. Volunteers will then be dismissed to your home store, and a group of students will follow you there. Once your students arrive to you in the home store, you will be able to start to introduce yourself and go into the process. As you can see here, this is the Step 1 overview, giving you a high-level information about what happens in Step 1. The following slides are going to give you more detail on the screenshots and instructions that you'll need throughout the process. So in Step 1, make sure to introduce yourself, discuss why budgeting is important, and pass out the tablets so everyone can get started in the simulation. I like to start the day by reminding students that they are the adults and have to make decisions for their household for their monthly budget. Now you will see more detailed instructions on how to help students go through the software. On the left will be instructions and on the right will be screenshots, so that way you can always give a few key tips of what should be happening at any given screen. At this point, we want to have personal introductions so that you can share your professional background with them, including your education, your job, or any budgeting decisions you've made in the past, or good stories around that. Then discuss the budgeting steps with students, give them a high-level overview of what to expect. Set the ground rules with them, making sure they understand that everyone will work together today, will be respectful and patient, and also turn our tablets down so that we can have conversations throughout the process. Make sure they know they're responsible for their tablet and they need to keep that with them at all times. You'll be giving them different codes throughout the day, so it's very important that they all stay together and only move on when prompted. After that, distribute the tablets that will be in a crate in your store so that students can start to log on. Now going into the login process, they will use that number that's on the bottom right hand of their tablet to enter their JA account number in the very top line. After they complete that information, they can put in the rest of their personal information and click Login. This will then take them into the software so that they can get started with their day. Again, if you have any issues with this component of the login process, please be sure to let a JA staff member know or send the student that is individually having an issue to the middle of Finance Park so that we can help them log on. After students have logged on, it will then prompt them to answer 6 different questions, as you can see in the top right hand of our screen. After they answer all 6 questions, it will then give them their life scenario. The responses to their questions do not impact the life scenario that they receive. This is done totally random. After they see their life scenario, please be sure to review what they have received for the day. Are they single? Are they married? Do they have kids? How much money do they have? What's their credit score? What kind of educational background do they have? Make sure they understand who they are, as this will impact all of their decisions that they have throughout the day. You'll want to spend some time to gauge the group, see what they all ended up with for the day. Feel free to share some of your own stories or thoughts as they go through this process. Again, your value is the perspective and your experience, so be sure to add that as you go throughout the day and talk with them about what they now have for the day. After you've spoken to them about their life scenario, we then need to calculate their net monthly income. During this part, students will actually calculate their net monthly income by drag and dropping their 3 taxes from the right into the left-hand box. Volunteers want to make sure students understand what the gross annual income is and how do they get a net monthly income from that. So the gross would be divided by 12 and then taking out taxes. We want students to also understand why we have to pay taxes, what they're used for, and why it's important to actually calculate your net monthly income instead of using the gross annual income or a gross monthly income. So this is helping students understand all the money that they will have for the day. So as you see, the bottom screen on your right, the household net monthly income, which on here says $4,305, will be different for each student. We want students to understand this is all the money they have for the day. After that, we've gotten through all of step 1, the life scenario. The important part of step 1 is helping students understand what adult life they now have for the day and why is this relevant to real life. Is this something that they would want to do in their future, or is this going to be something they weren't expecting? Have them talk about it, discuss the impact that will have on the rest of their day. Now, moving into step 2, the savings budget, we want students to understand the importance of paying their future self first through savings. We summarize this in Pay Yourself First to help students understand that savings is helping to save for their future needs and wants. Today, we will be dividing their savings into 3 main categories of retirement, emergency, and other. You will have to have students put in master codes at different points of the day. Anytime a master code is needed, it will be at the top left-hand corner in orange so that you may give them to your group when your group is all there at the same time. This is primarily a pacing mechanism to make sure they're all together as they go throughout the budgeting process. After that, you will see they have to answer a concept question. Please ask students to do this on their own to the best of their abilities. You do have the answers in your guide, so you'll be able to see how they did and help give them the answer afterwards. The bottom screen on your right is more detail about the savings information. The key is that to move on from this screen, they will have to tap all green boxes and then also make sure they put their total savings amount in and divide it into their 3 buckets of retirement, emergency, and other. Savings is important in their budget, and that's why we want to talk about it first. The key concept here is to make sure and understand savings, why it's important, and make sure they know that they can change this later if they decide, but we want to hit on this at the very beginning of the day. After completing the savings step in step 2, you will now start the research step, where students will learn about all the other expenses that they have in their budget after savings. The value of this step is to make sure they understand the different items as well as how they're all connected. Whereas, for example, when you buy a house, your utilities and insurance can go up based on the value of your house. We want students to start to see those different connections as well as learn about all those different items. Research is done by first starting by giving them a master code. After that, you'll see the Research Master screen, which has a bunch of items that have to be unlocked on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. During this section, they also have to apply for 2 loans, one for their house through a bank mortgage and one for transportation. Students will go through and unlock all of their items by category, looking at their house category first while applying for their loan before moving on to all their transportation items. During this part, students should be receiving an introduction to all these items. You'll spend more time talking about each item in more detail during the budget plan. So this is only about 30 minutes for this step. Make sure students unlock all items before moving on from this step, but you'll be giving them codes to help them move through this as a group. You will see here is all the different codes and expenses that they will have to pay for today. As you can see, we've broken them into 5 different categories to help them prioritize and also see the connection between them. You will have each group go through each category of expenses together, starting with housing. Have them look at the different items, unlock each of them, as well as apply for their bank mortgage loan. Once students have all unlocked each of the codes for housing, they move to transportation. They'll unlock all of those codes as well as learn a little bit about them. They'll do this for the remainder of the categories until they've unlocked all items so that they can move on to the next step, which is the budget plan. This will take about 30 minutes to help all students unlock each of the different items, as well as give them that quick introduction. The research step is primarily about having students read information to you, getting a quick introduction for each item, and making sure all key items are unlocked. After the research step, everyone pauses to actually break for lunch or going to the Delta Airlines Career Exploration Center. Half of the group will be directed to go to lunch at the Chick-fil-A cafe. All students, teachers, and volunteers get a bag lunch from Chick-fil-A that includes a Chick-fil-A sandwich, chips, applesauce, and a bottle of water. The other half of the group will be in the Delta Airlines Career Exploration Center, where volunteers will assist students with a scavenger hunt, where they explore career options based on education requirements and salaries. This career exploration scavenger hunt will be on their tablet for them to complete. After everyone has done that, they will switch. So the first group will now go to the Delta Airlines Career Exploration Center, and the second group will go to lunch. This ensures that everyone has some time out of Finance Park and also able to refuel for the rest of their day. If you have any dietary restrictions, please be sure to notify your JA representative before you come to JA Finance Park. Step 4, the budget plan. After everyone has had lunch as well as visited the Delta Airlines Career Exploration Center, everyone will return to their home store in Finance Park. At this time, students will learn they have to create a budget, because budgeting happens before spending, and we want to encourage students to think about creating a budget before they spend their money. This will help guide them during the shopping step, as well as make sure that they're within ranges for different items. Instead of having students create their budget plan only in their home store, we will ask students to actually rotate to visit the different storefronts. Before they leave, we want to point out key information about their budget. As you can see at the top, it will tell them some key pieces of information about their budget, their net monthly income, the NMI, the total amount that they've budgeted, and whatever they have left to allocate. Then on the left-hand column, it has all of their expenses, the minimum recommended amount, the maximum recommended amount, and what their budget is. So they will complete the far right-hand column to actually fill in all of that information. Students will rotate into each of the stores for approximately 3 minutes each. This will give them time to talk about that item, make sure they understand it, see what range they have, and then make their decision of how much they think they should budget. Students should not save their budget until they are completely done with the rotations and with finishing their budget. They have to have 0 left to allocate to be able to save. As you can see, the very top right here, it must be 0 before they can save, and we don't want them to do that until the very end of their budget. Once they save, they cannot change their plan. As you can see in your guide, you'll also have a chart for all the different items that they have for their expenses and categories. Then they'll have the store where that item will be talked about, as well as the minimum maximum ranges for that item. Additionally, in your guide, you will see there is a rotation map to make sure you know where students should be going at any given time. We will make sure for that the JA staff members are also helping to direct students as they move throughout the space. After completing the budget plan, students will proceed to step 5, the shopping phase. Shopping is done in the home store with volunteers. They do not rotate or move at any point during shopping, as this is online shopping. Students will have to try to adhere to the budgets that they created in the budget plan. They will then have to keep track of how much money they're spending and make sure they see all the different connections that they learned about in the research step. Volunteers are very crucial to help shed some light on the budgeting process, some of the trade-offs that take place in an actual budget, and some of the tough real-life decisions that you have to make. Students often have many light bulb moments during this process. Students will have to put in a master code to access all their shopping options. After they put in the code, you'll see the shopping master screen in the bottom right of your screen at this moment. The different categories can be shopped for in any given order. However, we encourage students to stay within the same categories that they learned about in research. So have all of your students start in the housing category, make their housing decisions, and do all associated expenses within that. They should only spend about 2 to 3 minutes per expense to make sure they have time to shop for everything. So at this time, they've shopped for all their housing expenses and then move on to transportation. This is not, as always, easy to do as it is to say, but we do want to encourage them to stay together to foster more group discussion at this time. You may have many opportunities to share different stories about expenses that you've paid for or surprises that have come up in your budget when you've actually been shopping. As we all know, we can create a great plan, but sometimes the realities are just a little bit different than we expected. Students will also have to manage those trade-offs and figure out if they're spending more in certain categories, how do they save money in others. After all items have been shopped for in step 5, shopping, they will then have to pay their bills for certain items. At this time, students now need to pay the remainder of their bills. Certain items will be required that say to be paid, other payments will not be required, which will say payment not required. This is to help students understand the difference of certain items and expenses that you would pay online versus items that you would pay in person, like at the grocery store. Definitely make sure students understand the difference of payments and what they would use for each of the different decisions. Once the shopping is completed and payments have been paid, it is then the final part of the Finance Park program, Step 7, the Invesco Budget Review. Students will have 12 final questions that they have to answer before they complete the software. After that, it will give them a budget review summarizing all of their decisions from the day, including their investments and credit information. At this time, it's important for volunteers to debrief with them about their experience. How did their life scenario impact their day? What was difficult about budgeting? How would they do it differently? They could come back again tomorrow, or how will they do it differently in the future? Ask them about how their day went so that you can understand better about what light bulb moments they had and how this process went for them. Which looks like the image on the right-hand side of your screen. Once you see the budget review, please make sure to review the process with students. Help them reflect on the experience and ask them some of the key questions you see here on the left. What did you learn today throughout this process? How will this experience impact your future decisions? How does your education level impact your budget and the decisions you had to make today? We also will provide debit cards for students to take home as a souvenir at the end of their day. The budget review is a key component of the process to make sure that students have understood some of the different key concepts. This also will show you some of the things that they've learned and those light bulb moments that they've had throughout their day. As 7th graders, they aren't always able to articulate some of those light bulb moments, so this will be a great time to review and reflect with them. Definitely make sure to take a few minutes at the end of the day just to reflect with your students in your home store. Once students have completed Invesco's budget review, they have now completed the JA Finance Park program. A few key things that volunteers typically ask about before we wrap up. Clothing. We suggest all volunteers to wear business casual. Please make sure to wear comfortable shoes as well as bring a light jacket as the space is large and has varying temperatures. Please limit your personal items by leaving them in your car as we don't have any locker space or personal space for a lot of belongings. Also, please plan to arrive at 9:30 a.m. on the morning of your volunteer date. If you'd like to come for the group training, and you're more than welcome to sit through that as well, it will be starting promptly at 8:30. If you are unable to come that early, please plan to arrive by 9:30 a.m. We have 3 parking options which you will be sent prior to your arrival. The first is the J.A. Chep volunteer lot, the Gold Deck, and MARTA. These will be sent to you before you arrive. Please be sure to use these specific instructions as our facility is located in Building C of the Georgia World Congress Center and has a lot of parking options. We want to make sure you make it as close to our space as possible. The last thing is we will be here to support you throughout this entire process. Your role as a volunteer is to make sure students understand the importance of budgeting and the basic concepts behind it by relating it to your own personal stories and experiences. We really appreciate the time that you're giving to Atlanta's future to help them start to see that importance and relevance now while they're in 7th grade before they have their own money to spend. Thank you for your time and for being a part of this as a volunteer. If you have any questions after this training, please feel free to contact your JA representative so that we can answer your questions as well. We hope to see you soon.